Welcome to the Canes Corner podcast. I am Adam Gold. After a Hurricanes 4-1 win over the Nashville Predators here at PNC Arena, you can see it behind me. If you are joining us on YouTube, Canes Corner podcast page right here, invite you, ask you, implore you, caress the like button or the subscribe button. I actually don't know what it is. So just so you always know when it's showing up. We do these after every Hurricanes game live to YouTube because why not? Technology is wonderful. All right, a lot to talk about. By the way, we are brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. If it's for the exterior of your home, you can find it at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina on Hamlin Road in Durham. No place like it. Sam Meehan and his crew do a great job. So whether it's roofing or siding or windows or entry doors, they have it all. All right, let's get right to it. Yesterday, we really didn't want to talk about the game because, frankly, it was a game, and it was a game that was played by players who are not going to be on the NHL roster, as proven by basically all of them were either farmed out or released today. We talked a little bit about it, but we get right to it tonight because tonight was the NHL group. Minus Andrei Svechnikov. If Felix Unger-Sorum is not here, and the more I talk to people, the more I kind of think that it will not happen this year for Felix, that they're just going to send him back and they're going to start the season. I believe if Andre can't go, and I think it's probably maybe a 75% chance that he won't, I think they're going to start the season with 7D and 11 forwards. It's not ideal. Nothing's ideal. But I think they're going to put their best 18 skaters on the ice. And I don't think Brendan Lemieux is in that 18. Jalen Chatfield is definitely in that 18. Also gives them the opportunity, if they lose a penalty-killing defenseman, to have an extra one. You got Chatfield, you got Orlov, you've got Slavin, you got Pesce, you got Shea, Burns. I mean, 6 of the 7 can kill penalties. You can probably cycle through a little faster. Man, they can be awesome defensively. And I also think that those guys almost need to be kind of feeling the game. You don't want Jalen Chatfield sitting around. Anyway, we don't have to belabor that point too much. But I want to get into the game tonight. And here's the way to me, it was 2 different games. It was whatever happened in the first and the third, and then whatever happened in the second. I thought Carolina was dominant in the first period, probably deserved a little bit better than 1-0, but that was the score. We're kind of used to it here. Great opportunities from the Aho-Jarvis bunting line, especially early. There was a big, heavy, long shift by the Stahl line, which, frankly, duh. And then there was the sequence where Anderson makes a great save at one end on, I believe it was Denis Gurianov. And Martinook springs Stahl in on a breakaway. He does a beautiful forehand-backhand move, just can't finish it. Lankinen made a really good save. If Stahl elevates it a little bit, it's a goal. But he was kind of stretched out, so I get it. But still, it was a very good first period for Carolina. I think they had a 13-5 edge in shots. Then the second period started out 5-on-3, trying to kill off a 2-man disadvantage, which they did. Anderson makes a big save on Roman Josi. And then they wipe out the rest of the power play. They had to kill another one, so it was kind of a choppy start. But through all of it, Carolina was still leading 1-0. And then the Yakov-Trenin was a lucky goal. It was good play, and that line for Nashville was great. Was it? It was Trenin, Michael McCarron, and Cole Smith. I thought was pretty impactful in the game. And Trenin is a good player, and I think he's had Carolina's number too, if I recall correctly. But he just picks up a loose puck along the left half wall and just wheels and flings it towards the net. and it caroms off the skate of Jordan Stahl and kind of bounced underneath the pad of Freddie Anderson. That made it 1-1, and it's kind of deflating because, I mean, Carolina had a 1-0 lead. Nashville was controlling the game, but they weren't beating Anderson, and then you have a fluky goal. I mean, it's kind of deserved if you think about it, the way Nashville played in the second period. And it was 1-1, and then, what, a minute later, whatever it was, Seth Jarvis. I was actually surprised they gave Aho the assist. I'd have to go see it again. I didn't see a ton of replays. Wasn't a TV game, so everything you were getting was coming off the Jumbotron. But looked to me like it was a mistake trying to get the by Mark Del Gaizo. I thought he lost control of the puck, and it kind of slid out to Jarvis, and Jarvis just roofed it over Kevin Lankin and made it 2-1. So Carolina, who wasn't very good in the second period, didn't lose it. And they ended up even 1-1 in the period. So, I mean, good way to recover, but they kind of got away with a bad second period. And again, a lot of it was the power play time that they had to kill from Nashville. Carolina was 4 for 4 on the kill. They were excellent. Penalty kill was awesome tonight. They score a power play goal, but I think if we're being honest, the power play was kind of trash. The goal came immediately after the second unit came on the ice, after the first unit was a mess. Second unit comes on the ice. Orlov makes a diagonal pass to Teuvo Teravainen, left top of the left faceoff circle, and incredible net front presence from Jesperi Kotkaniemi right in front at the top of the crease. He didn't make contact with Lankinen. I'm not sure Lankinen ever saw it. Stefan Nason was also to the outside of the goal, so there was something else for Lankinen to worry about. And that's the way it's done, man. Great net front from KK. He doesn't even get an assist on the play, but I think you can, if you wanted to credit the goal to Kotkaniemi, you easily could. And that made it 1-0 Carolina. It was just a really good power play goal. The second time Carolina had a power play and they only had 2, it was trash. I mean, it was comedy. Carolina cleared the zone, their own zone, twice. I mean, they were doing all of Nashville's work for them on the power play. I think really tonight it looked like a team that really hadn't played a lot of hockey together, which obviously they really haven't. Only 6 games in the preseason. The first one was all people we've never seen, nobody really here. The second one was more of an NHL look. They had to play some NHL players in the split squad game because you only have so many players. So, and they weren't necessarily split. One was like the B group, one was the A group. And then tonight was basically the finish after last night's minor league game. But a lot of good things I think we saw tonight, and a lot of good things I think that I have seen over the 6 games of the preseason, or at least the 3 that I was able to see with my eyeballs, because I was able to watch yesterday's game basically off of Nashville's Jumbotron, perfectly fine. And there were a lot of good things from the goaltenders that we saw. So we'll try to get into all of these things, and if you want to throw some comments up here on YouTube, we will work those in as well. And some of you may have heard from the head coach, but we're going to give that to you, get a chance to hear what Rod Brindamore had to say after the game. All right, let's get to the mix of these players, because I believe that this is a very, very good blend of skill, of players who play with a little sandpaper, who also have some skill. I like the way that Michael Bunting is going to fit with Aho and Jarvis. It could end up being Aho and Teravainen at some point. I don't know how the forwards and the wings are going to work out. Carolina's going to have a lot of talent up and down the lineup, a lot of scoring talent. I'll say this right now. I think it's very possible that Carolina's fourth line, and you almost hate numbering this because you'll understand what I'm going to say. because it looks like it's going to be Jack Drury. I don't see anybody else taking that spot from him. If you wanted to argue that maybe Carolina should try to upgrade that, I'll hear it. But right now, I think it's going to be Jack Drury, Stefan Nason, and when Svechnikov comes back, Teuvo Teravainen. I mean, Nason can score. I think we all agree that Drury can. He hasn't so much, but I think he can. And we know that Teravainen can score. When was the last time Carolina had a fourth line where you had maybe combined 50 goals? Maybe more. If Drury can score in the 15 neighborhood, Teravainen's about 20. Nason could be pretty close to 20. I mean, there's every chance in the world Carolina's going to have a very dangerous fourth line. Top line, I think, is going to be excellent. I think Bunting is going to be dynamite with Aho. What I saw from Necas and Teravainen tonight was excellent. I thought Kokoniemi played a very good game. And while to me he's not the ideal second center, because I don't think he's going to be a big point producer, if he plays like he did tonight every game, he's good defensively, he's a big body, he's a good skater, and I think he plays the right way. I think he's a smart player. He's just very good. If the offense ever shows up, I mean, Carolina's got a bargain. And remember, he's still very, very young. But I thought he played a good game tonight. Again, I talk about the net front presence, but I just think he played a very smart, simple game. And that's what Rod Brindamore is going to want from him. And he got it tonight. And, of course, the stall line is the stall line. And I could certainly see Rod, when everybody's healthy, putting Teravainen on the right side and letting Jesper Fast skate with Drury and Stefan Nason. That would be fine because Teravainen is a very good defensive player and he's going to fit right in with Martinook and Stahl. But, I mean, it's hard to break up Stahl, Fast, and Martinook. That line has been so good for a year. I mean, they were just awesome all last year. I know what Rod did with kind of activating Martinook around the rink, depending on who needed to get going. Here, put Jordan with him. That'll get him going. But the mix of players, I think, is so good. We haven't even gotten to the blue line yet, which is, I mean, what do you say? There's no team in the league that can ice the defensemen the Hurricanes can ice. There are bigger teams. There are more physical teams. But there is not another team with the blend of, look, there's no Cale Makars here, right? There's no Adam Foxes here. There's no players like that. There's no Roman Yossi's here. But Slavin is the best defensive defenseman in the sport. Brent Burns, I think, is going to have a monster season, point-wise. Pesce and Shea, I think they're here. I think they're both here for the duration. As good a shutdown pair as you're going to find. And then, quietly, and I want to talk about this for a little bit, Dmitry Orlov is good. And he is going to play on Carolina's third defensive pair. He is good. And he is versatile. And he is physical. And he is a very good athlete. And he's got moves. It was a joy to watch him operate again tonight. The first time I saw him in the first preseason game, he played the first period. And I think there was a little bit of that tonight. I thought Orlov's best period was the first, but I thought he was the best player in the first period. He did so many really cool things. But he's so good with the puck. It was very cool, very good to watch. Carolina's just absolutely flipping loaded on the blue line. A couple of other things I want to get to, but first, I want you all to hear from the head coach, Rod Brindamore.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. Good start. Second was not good, but that was because we just right out of the flow. I think we're in the box about like the whole first half of that period. So I like the third, kind of got going, and overall it's pretty good because really that's the first game that group's been together. So I thought like, there's still a lot of things to work on, but fairly happy.
Is that the lesson to be taught here? Is penalties can take you out of your flow?
Yeah, I mean that's always been that way. I don't want to talk about that. Let's talk about some good things.
How do you feel like you 11-7 went tonight?
I mean, it's not ideal situation because, like we talked about this morning, I mean, it's some guys are getting probably a little too much up front and then some guys not enough in the back. But, we got some really good D. And so it's a good thing. But if we continue to do it that way for a while, that's okay. We'll figure it out. And, that kind of remains to be seen.
Seems like your two new guys, Orlov and Bunting, are fitting in almost perfectly.
Yeah, listen, there's a learning curve for sure. And, that we'll keep, the good thing is they get it. They know that there's, their willingness to, okay, I got to figure it out. And that's takes a little bit of time, but they picked up most of it, fairly well. And obviously they're good players. So they're good additions.
Encouraging to see how well Turbo played tonight.
They played hard, which, that's what we need. I mean, no secret. He's a super player for us, does every situation. So we got to get him up to his abilities. And I thought tonight he was right on. Yeah, that's the game, really. I mean, it was, we had a really good first period and penalties, and then all of a sudden they had all the action, and it's a different game if the one or two of those get by them. So that's goaltending. That's what it does.
You look at the lineup and you see you've got pretty much everybody back from last year, and then maybe two new guys in the lineup. Tony obviously knows what he's doing. So when you get into a situation like a 5-on-3 or something that you haven't practiced really at all on the ice.
There's a comfort there when in a lot of the things that we're doing with the guys that have been here. So yeah, you're right. That's a good point. It's not something I don't know if we've had one yet this preseason. I think we did, but it was not with those guys. So much different looking. But yeah, that's important, right? Not just on that little area like you mentioned, but just in your overall game for sure.
I've had great chances throughout the night, but ultimately ended up with 2 assists. But talk about in the offseason how great or how it's been working.
I will stop it right there. I think Ron alluded to the fact that he might go 11-7, start 11-7, which would mean that Felix Ungersorum likely will not start the season with the Hurricanes. That's the head coach, Rod Brindamore. Look, there's a lot of good things, not just out of tonight, but I think when he looks around the locker room, he sees a team that is going to play the way he wants it to play. And think about, they added Michael Bunting. He should fit right in to that aggressive forechecking style. Dmitry Orlov, again, adds so much in all different phases. He's going to kill penalties, be on the second power play unit. He can play 24 minutes a night if you needed him. Carolina's got a lot of guys like that, by the way. But I just think that it's going to be a hard-working team. And you saw that tonight. I actually didn't think it was a great Sebastian Aho night, even though he got the 3rd star of the game and he had 2 assists. But I thought there were some really, really good performances. Guys that I wrote down, and I'm going to expand a little bit more on some of the other guys. Guys I wrote down that were in the running for my stars: Orlov, Stahl, Jarvis, Slavin. I mean, there were some very good players tonight. Ultimately, I gave 1st star to Anderson, 2nd star to Teravainen, and 3rd star to Michael Bunting. But there were a lot of guys who could have gotten stars tonight. I want to talk briefly about 3 players offensively. Last offseason, not this past one, but the last one, my opinion was we can bring in everybody we want. And they brought in a Max Pacioretty, right? We can bring in all these guys. But ultimately, Carolina's improvement was going to have to come from within. That would be the most noticeable improvement. And what did we see? We saw Marty Necas have, for the most part, the type of year we want him to have. Did he fade at the end? Yes. Was he kind of missing in the playoffs? Yes. But Natchez, for the first 60 games of the regular season, was amazing. Carolina's going to need another year of that type of improvement. Whether it's Natchez doing what he did for the first 60, but stretching it out over 80, and I'm not asking him to be a point-a-game guy, but also carrying that into the postseason. So it's a big year for Martin. Seth Jarvis. Nobody is going to convince me that Jarvis wasn't a drastically better player last season than he was in his first season. I thought Jarvis was excellent last year. He just didn't have the offensive production to go along with it. His numbers were less last year in 82 games than they were the year before in 68 games. But he was a much better player last year. This year, I think the offense catches up. And, I mean, I'm not going to put a figure on it, but, I mean, if Seth can be around 60 points, again, we're talking about the improvement and then the return of Teuvo Teravainen to being the Teravainen that basically was a 75-point-a-year guy. And that those numbers probably won't be able to meet those simply because I don't think he's going to play with his buddy. I don't think he's going to play with Sebastian Aho too much. But if Teuvo can be a 60-point guy, Carolina's going to be so much better. So much better. And again, he's the glue. He does everything. He plays in all situations. He's great defensively. He's the best passer on the team, and the team has great passers. Svechnikov is a great passer, and I should throw him into the mix. Last 18 games were played without Andre. If he has a year, and I think Andre will, I don't think he'll start the year. You know, if Andre can play 75 games this year, be pretty doggone good. All right, well, we are going to take some questions in the comments, and then we're going to talk about some goaltending before we get out of here. Mikhailov, 08. I think he is in Australia, if I remember correctly. He was our Aussie. Oi, 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 oi. I don't know if they do that anymore. Felix Unger Sorum, have we got another Seth Jarvis case on our hands? Okay. I brought that up because it sort of reminded me of when Jarvis went to the prospect camp a couple of years ago, and they went, wait a second, this guy's really good. And they kept him around. Nino got hurt. Jarvis jumped in. Jarvis never came out. Nino came back in. Somebody else came out. I think it was like a lot of it was Derek Stepan, right, coming out. Jarvis, so I don't think that's going to happen with Unger Sorum. Like, I don't think I'm positive he's not going to stay here long term. He might start the season. It's like maybe a 25% chance he starts the season, but I don't think he's going to stick around. The plan for him is to send him back to Sweden and play for his team in Sweden. He plays for Leksand. And he needs a full season, a lot of minutes, and hopefully he'll play against men. I don't know how much it helps him to go back and play junior hockey, but, you know, they'll put him where they need him the most. But to me, it's very similar to that. We were talking about it. But I think ultimately he goes back. The thing about Jarvis, they really couldn't they could have sent him back to his junior team, but he would have been too old to play. It wasn't going to do him any good. He would have been better off actually just kind of sitting around and practicing, being on the NHL roster. But we don't have to worry about that. Sorum will go back to Sweden. Sam, Does this game give you hope for a bounce back season for Turbo? I had that hope before the season, before I saw him play, but Teravainen was great tonight. Last year he just got off to a slow start, never rebounded, and we were all hoping that when we got to the playoffs, it would sort of click, where the regular season is the regular season, we don't care. Teravainen's Teravainen again, and then Jean-Gabriel Pageau slashed him. Was it second period of game 2, maybe third period of game 2, and that was that. And he probably shouldn't have come back against Florida. He wasn't great against Florida. He was okay. He was good at the end of that series, but it was kind of a waste. And I know he has said that the thumb will never be the same. I don't know. I haven't necessarily talked to him about it, but the version of Teuvo Teravainen we saw tonight was pretty good. So, and I think he'll be great. I think he'll be great this year. Patriots soft wash. What? Possible Suzuki earns a spot pending the upper body injury. No. This is something I believe about all sports, not just hockey or the Hurricanes. As fans, and remember, I am one of them too. As fans, we have a tendency to overrate our prospects and to a lesser extent our players. I don't think Ryan Suzuki's an NHL player. Now, before the eye injury, maybe he was. I don't think he is. I think he is in baseball parlance, they call it a 4A player. He's basically a good minor leaguer. But Suzuki hasn't been able to stay healthy. He's got skill. He's got good hands. He's got skill. He's got a high hockey IQ. Maybe down the road he can fit into a roster. But you know who he reminds me of a little bit? Yanni Kuokkanen. Although I think Kuokkanen was maybe a little bit of a bigger body, not quite as quick, but I just don't see NHL in Ryan Suzuki. And I think he's behind a lot of players for the position he plays. Vasily Ponomarov, if he didn't have the lower body injury, he would be pushing Jack Drury for the fourth line center spot. I think Drury is still ahead of Ryan Suzuki. So I hope you don't have stock in Ryan Suzuki, Patriot, because I don't think it's going to happen for him. No, we do not have an affiliate, an AHL affiliate. Rod did address this. It's a headache for management. And I think it's a headache in two ways. Carolina doesn't have a ton of legitimate prospects that need seasoning other than Pyotr Kochetkov. I think he has to play. And if Anderson is doing what he's doing like he did tonight, then he's your number one. And Pyotr would be the backup if he's here, but he's not playing. Now, maybe you can play Freddie, 50 times a year as opposed to 57 times a year. But Antti Ranta needs to play too. Probably needs to play less than Pyotr. But tough situation with the goalie. Ideally, Kochetkov would play 55 games this year. Some at the NHL level, some at the AHL level. But then you got to find a place for him to go. Brendan asks, does Lemieux come in when we play heavier teams? I mean, I guess. I didn't think Brendan Lemieux had a very good preseason. What I saw, I didn't think he was all that noticeable last night in a good way. He was never going to play tonight, so it's hard to know. He skated this morning with the main group, but that was just to fill out the lines. And I do think that if they start the season and they don't have Svechnikov and they send Unger Sorum back to his junior team in Sweden, I think Carolina is going to start the season with 11 forwards and 7 defensemen. Just the way I see it. All right, real quick to goaltending, and I guess I kind of already addressed it, but Freddie, Auntie, and Piotr were all really good in the preseason. At least the games that I've seen. I saw the first game. I saw last night's game. I watched it, and I saw tonight's game. 2 of them I've been in person for. I think Anderson has been great both times that I've seen him. I think Kochetkov has been excellent both times that I have seen him. And I thought Ranta, for allowing 5 goals last night, was pretty good. And only the 4th goal, I think, is one that Auntie would, when he's playing well, I think, handle. It was the Roman Yossi kind of maneuvering around Carolina's defense, and then it was a very weak shot. I think Yossi's stick was bothered on the shot, so we got nothing on it, and it just kind of shoveled it at Ranta, and it probably just handcuffed him a little bit because it wasn't coming at him with the speed he anticipated, and he put the puck right back out into right in the corner. Or just diagonally to the front of the goal. And it was an easy goal to score. And I'm blanking on who scored it yesterday, but that's the only goal I think that he would like to have the sequence over. Otherwise, I thought he was great. And I know he allowed a bunch of goals, but again, look at the team in front of him and the team he was playing against with the team in front of him. So to me, that was that. All right. I do believe that we are pre-seasoned out, and we are ready to drop the puck Wednesday against the Ottawa Vladimir Tarasenko Senators. So hey, if you want to give Vlad a hard time for not wanting to play for the Hurricanes, because I believe that was the case, and that's okay. Not Hurricanes hockey is not for everybody, right? What do our NC State friends say? Wolfpack ain't for soft people. I'm feeling it. I think if you're going to play on this team, you have to commit to playing a certain way. And I just don't think that Vladimir Tarasenko wants to play that way, which is okay. Not everybody does. Not everybody can play this way. But Carolina can. If you're in this dressing room, you can play that way. And Carolina, I think, is ready for the season to start. I really do. I think they're ready. I can't wait to see it Wednesday night. And as always, we'll be here on the Canes Corner podcast page live on YouTube after every game. And until Wednesday night, let's see, 7 o'clock start, probably a 7:15 start, given pregame where you introduce all the players and whatnot, pomp and circumstance. We should be out here about 10:45, barring overtime. But you know what? That's why you subscribe to it. And I appreciate your time. I'm Adam Gold. This has been the Canes Corner podcast, brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. If it's for the exterior of your home, you can find it at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina on Hamlin Road in Durham. No place like it. Windows, siding, roofing, entry doors, storm doors, gutter helmets. Yep. All right. Good way to end the preseason. 4-1 win. Fun. And good night, everybody, from PNC Arena.